What if I told you that the history of modern war was not built by missiles, not by fighter jets, and not even by automatic rifles? It started with smoke. It started with fire. And it started with weapons that were slow, loud, and terrifyingly simple. Long before machines ruled the battlefield, soldiers fought with early firepower that changed the destiny of nations forever. From the thunder of muskets, to the destructive power of artillery cannons, to the mechanical revolution of breech-loading rifles. This is the story of how warfare began its journey toward modern destruction. Welcome to the rise of firepower. Early military weapons. Musket. Before modern rifles, before machine guns, there was the musket. For centuries, the musket dominated battlefields across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It was a smoothbore, muzzle-loading firearm, meaning soldiers had to pour gunpowder and insert a lead ball down the barrel before every single shot. It was slow. It was inaccurate at long distances, and in wet weather, it could fail completely. Yet despite its limitations, the musket changed warfare forever. Armies no longer relied solely on swords and bows. Organized lines of infantry would stand shoulder to shoulder, firing volleys in coordinated rhythm. Smoke filled the air. Visibility dropped. Commands were shouted over the thunder of gunfire. Reloading a musket required discipline and training. A well-trained soldier could fire about 3 rounds per minute, a pace that determined survival in battle. The musket turned warfare into structured formations and synchronized firepower. It marked the beginning of large-scale firearm-based combat. Artillery cannon. If the musket shaped the infantry, the cannon ruled the battlefield. Artillery cannons were massive weapons designed to fire heavy metal balls or explosive shells over long distances. Positioned behind infantry lines, they were used to destroy fortifications, break enemy formations, and create chaos before charge. The sound of the cannon firing was overwhelming, a deep explosion followed by destruction wherever the projectile landed. Cannons changed the nature of sieges. Fortified castles and city walls that once stood strong for years could now be reduced to rubble in days. On open battlefields, artillery softened enemy lines before infantry advanced. The psychological effect was just as powerful as the physical damage. The ground shook. Smoke covered the horizon. Soldiers knew destruction could strike at any moment. Artillery became the backbone of organized armies and laid the foundation for modern heavy fire. Breech-loading rifle. As technology advanced, the limitations of the musket became clear. Armies needed faster, more accurate weapons. That evolution led to the breech-loading rifle. Unlike muskets, which were loaded from the front of the barrel, breech-loading rifles were loaded from the rear, the breech. This design dramatically increased the rate of fire and allowed soldiers to reload while lying down or taking cover. Accuracy improved significantly because these rifles used rifle barrels, grooves inside the barrel that made bullets spin, increasing stability and range. Soldiers no longer needed to stand in exposed lines to reload. They could fire from protected positions, making warfare deadlier and more strategic. The breech-loading rifle marked the transition from traditional line warfare to more modern combat tactics. It reduced the effectiveness of mass infantry charges and increased the importance of cover, trenches, and defensive positioning. Flintlock mechanism. Early muskets used matchlocks, which required a burning fuse. But the invention of the flintlock mechanism made firearms more reliable. The flintlock system created sparks to ignite gunpowder, eliminating the need for a constantly burning match. This innovation improved speed, safety, and readiness in battle. Suddenly, soldiers could react faster. Firearms became more practical and efficient on the battlefield. This small mechanical change had a massive impact on military effectiveness. Mortars. Alongside cannons, mortars added another layer of firepower. Unlike cannons that fired in straight lines, mortars launched explosive shells in high arcs. This allowed armies to strike enemies hiding behind walls or inside fortifications. Mortars introduced indirect fire, the ability to hit a target without seeing it directly. This was a strategic breakthrough that would influence artillery tactics for centuries to come. Bayonet. As firearms developed, soldiers still needed a solution for close combat. The bayonet was the answer. Attached to the end of a musket, it transformed a firearm into a spear. This eliminated the need for separate pikemen in infantry formations. The bayonet allowed soldiers to defend themselves when reloading or when enemies charged in a close range. It symbolized the transition from medieval melee combat to firearm-dominated warfare. Early revolvers. Another important innovation was the revolver. Unlike single-shot pistols, revolvers could fire multiple rounds before reloading. This gave officers and cavalry units a significant advantage in close encounters. It increased personal firepower and mobility, particularly in fast-moving battles. Together, these weapons reshaped military strategy. The musket introduced organized firearm combat. The flintlock improved reliability. Cannons and mortars brought devastating long-range power. The bayonet maintained close combat capability. The breech-loading rifle introduced speed, precision, and tactical flexibility. Revolvers increased individual firepower. War was no longer defined by swords, shields, and cavalry charges. It became louder, deadlier, more industrial. Armies grew larger. Battles lasted longer, and technology began to decide victory. War did not evolve in a single moment. It transformed step by step, weapon by weapon, from smoke-filled musket volleys to the thunder of artillery cannons to the precision of breech-loading rifles. These early military weapons laid the foundation for the industrial wars that would follow. They were not just inventions. They were the beginning of modern warfare.